is not for rent. Don't put him down as arrogant. His reserve a quiet defense, writing out the day's events. The river.
Does it really take all that?
What you say about his company and what you say about society.
Now that you're back, what will you be doing to help Canada?
I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Oh babe, I hate to go. I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Oh baby, I hate to go.
Too much, Joe. Oh, too much.
Dude, that dude singing Rush, which, by the way, is a Canadian band, is insane.
Yeah, and it reminds me. See, I have a similar dynamic going on with my 16-year-old son. Okay, who, by the way, tortures me. See, if it was me and my son in that video, he'd be torturing me listening to Luke Combs or like one of these country artists because he's all into country. He's from freaking New Jersey, and he might as well be wearing a cowboy hat and boots, right? But I do that all the time. The only difference is I'll do that with Rush, I'll do that with AC/DC, and he'll just look at me like this. That girl was crying, though. But come on. What American who knows the song Tom Sawyer has not played air drums to Tom Sawyer? It's almost like a rite of passage, Joe.
I would agree.
No.
She doesn't know what she's missing.
Yeah, doesn't know what he's missing. And Mark Carney, yeah, he should leave on a jet plane. He really should. He should just go to Brussels and just go take a residence there because that's who he's that's who he's acting on their behalf. But welcome everybody to the front line with Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossello. We're gonna do some quick hits today. But there is a bunch to talk about. You got the SAVE Act. Seems to me, Joe, like a no-brainer. I guess when it comes to our dysfunctional government, not such a no-brainer. And we're going to get into that. Marco Rubio talking about really the decline of the West. And that's going to be a theme throughout this show. Is go dive a little deeper into what that means, what the West is supposed to be, what it really turned out to be, and how it's declining rapidly. And then we'll give you an example. AOC in Germany, Joe. I don't know
that was horrible.
She's the most embarrassing. Like, I was embarrassed, not because like in a fist pump way, like, yeah, you idiot. I was embarrassed kind of like for her. Because I said a million times, and I'll say a million times more at the front line with Joe, she's an actress. And when she has lines, she's very, very good. Just like Barack Obama, just like Justin Trudeau. When you take them off script, they don't know how to improv. And you combine that with the fact that she has no geopolitical knowledge. She doesn't have any domestic political knowledge. She's an actress. She's not going to be able to answer questions. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Canada. Joe, what's the clip again we got that's going on in Alberta? All right, and what it would mean, let's say, for argument's sake, if Alberta broke off. And then as the title of the show is, not just with Joe and Joe, but Donald Trump's in a little bit of trouble. Donald Trump's in a little bit of trouble. At least if you look at the polls. Liberal Democrats are too, don't get me wrong. But Donald Trump, who had a fairly high approval rating in about a year ago, not for nothing, he squandered it. And we're going to talk about some of the reasons for that. And we're going to have a great show here at the front line with Joe and Joe. So, Joe, let's get it rocking. Let's talk about the SAVE Act, which, again, surface should be a no-brainer. Here's Mike Lee.
All right, so I'm getting a lot of questions. What's next now that we've got enough votes to get past a motion to proceed to the House-passed version of the Save America Act? We've got to put all of our efforts. I encourage everyone who will listen to you. The Senate needs to invoke the talking filibuster, to enforce the talking filibuster. If senators want to debate this, if they want to filibuster it, make them work for it. Make them stand up, make them speak. If we do it this way, we can continue this progress, and I think we can get this thing done. Look, there are no guarantees here, but the only shot we've got at this is through the talking filibuster. Thanks for fighting. Keep going. We'll get it done.
Democrats don't want to talk about this in public because 70% of Democrats favor voter ID and citizenship voting, and 90% of Republicans favor the same thing. This is a loser for the Democrats. That's why they want to talk about it. So Mike Lee's right. You're going to drag out the process. You have to go in front of the cameras on the Senate floor, and you have to go make your argument to tell American citizens of both parties and any party why you will not vote for someone to show an ID when they go to do the most sacred thing we have to do in our constitutional republic, which is to go and vote. Joe, this shouldn't be a hard one.
This is common sense. And like you said, 70% of Democrats, that's a CNN poll, over 90% of Republicans want this. The American people want this. This is the line of demarcation, people. Pay attention to this particular piece of legislation. Why do I say that? This is how we separate the sheep from the goats. 100% of every single representative should be voting for this because the American people want it. But here's the takeaway. 215 people voted against this in the House. What should that tell you? They don't care what you think. They don't care that this is common sense. They are interested in business as usual, which is a government that does not represent the people, that basically you have elections that are not secure. And the reason why the border was open was to bring in votes to take away the country from people who are citizens.
Right.
Because the ideology trumps the people. This is the line of demarcation. And any person who is outspoken against this common sense legislation, this should not even be a conversation, is not for you. It's really that simple. And to your point, Joe Pasillo, let them stand up in front of the American people and lie through their teeth, because that's exactly what they're going to do, and let people see who's doing it.
That's right. You gotta get out there and you gotta go make your argument. But again, this is why it's a circular thing, kind of, Joe, because they don't want voter ID because they want to make sure that illegals can vote. And if illegals vote, they'll still maintain power. And if they maintain power, then they never have to go up in front of the American people to explain it, because they know that the system is rigged in their favor because they're allowing people. I mean, California, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Not Marco Rubio. We'll get to him in a couple minutes. The governor. Why am I losing my train of thought?
Newsom.
Of Florida.
Oh, well, with DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis, I'm sorry. I apologize for all of you out there at the front line with Joe and Joe. I'm getting old, and I'm getting frustrated with all these idiots in our government, Republican and Democrat. DeSantis proved that if you have election regulation, so that it's a legit election where people have confidence, the people have confidence in the vote, they go out to vote. Broward County and Dade County went Republican in the last election, and went Republican for DeSantis's own election.
Overwhelmingly.
Overwhelmingly. So what does that show you? Dade County and Broward County were both rigged. That's what it shows you. I've said this. If you go to New Jersey and only citizens can vote with voter ID, I'm not saying it's not a liberal state, but it's not 60-40 liberal. And California is not 65-35 liberal. And New York is not 62 to 48 liberal. No, they have illegals voting, and lots of them. That's why they're opposed to this. That's why they know that as long as you can go to vote and nobody asks you for ID. Joe, which state is it? It's actually illegal to ask for ID.
That's absurd. But
Joe,
I don't, dude, it's not.
No, I'm asking which state is that?
I'm not sure, but I did hear that there was a state. I'm not sure. It could be New York. It's probably either New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, or California. One of one of those.
Yeah, and the thing is, and the reason why they don't want to get up there and argue it is, and they think they're going to get away with it, which they're probably not. If correct me if I'm wrong, Susan Collins voted for the SAVE Act. John Fetterman voted for the
They
SAVE
have
Act.
the votes. They have the votes. Right now, they have 50 votes. With Vance, it's 51. They just have to get it to the floor. That's up to Thune. And again, that shows who Thune is. He's either in or out, in the sense that he's either a sheep or a goat. And ultimately, why are they fighting this so hard? Schumer said it's dead on arrival because they know they're dead on arrival if this passes. They're done.
Right.
They're done. That is why they're fighting in Minnesota like they're fighting. You think they care about these migrants? They're fighting for their political lives. They know that if they don't have the migrant vote, they're done. That is an absolute reality. They're fighting for their political lives. That's exactly why Schumer said that. And this is why people should see through the fog. These people don't care about the migrants at all. They want them to vote. That is the only reason why they were let in the country. And I got news for you. We were saying that 5 years ago. This should have been said 5 years ago. Why else were they let in? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, and it's the same thing that went on in Europe. They even copied it, and people didn't pick up on it. It's absurd.
No, it is absurd. It is absurd. But you know what? It shows you that if you want to stop, or if you want to at least slow down the decline of, let's just call it the West, okay? You have to recognize that this is, you have to stand up. I mean, look, they don't stand up for the unborn. I'm talking about Republicans, okay? I don't care if they call themselves pro-life. They don't stand up for the unborn. They don't stand up for marriage in the family. What do you think is going to happen to the West, okay? Well, here's
centuries before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe. But in 1945, for the first time since the age of Columbus, it was contracting. Europe was in ruins. Half of it lived behind an iron curtain, and the rest looked like it would soon follow. The great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and sickle across vast swaths of the map in the years to come. Against that backdrop, then as now, many came to believe that the West's age of dominance had come to an end, and that our future was destined to be a faint and feeble echo of our past. But together, our predecessors recognized that decline was a choice, and it was a choice they refused to make. This is what we did together once before, and this is what President Trump and the United States want to do again now, together with you. And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline.
Boom. That is the second time an American. Joe P., you there?
Yeah, I'm with you, brother.
That was the second time America has stood in front of Europe, their power brokers, and told them to their face to get their act together. First was J.D. Vance in Germany. Second is Marco Rubio. He's basically calling them out in that speech. That just took place, by the way, for people who don't know. He's telling them, you are managing the decline of the West, as in your elites. And that is a reality. This was a choice. This was a choice. And the tool that they used was the migration of Europe. Bring in votes. It was used in France. It was used in Spain. It was used in the UK. It was used in Ireland. And it was used in Germany. They are ushering out Western civilization as we know it and bringing in something else, which is anti-democracy, it's anti-middle class, it's anti-people, it's anti-human, it's anti-life. And that is a reality. It embraces globalism, it embraces green economics, and it embraces a climate cult, which frankly is being used as a tool to steal your livelihood away. That is what they embrace, and that is what Rubio, to their face, has said, we are not on board. And I will tell you this.
Let me tell you something.
Please.
No, you were about to finish your thought, Jay.
What I was going to say is this. If the Democrats lose the next presidential election, if I was to bet dollars to donuts, they're going to. And I'll tell you why. Because they don't have anybody. Gavin Newsom is not going to cut it. Neither is AOC. Neither is Kamala Harris. Unless someone comes out of the woodwork, I would bet money they're not going to win. Who will win? It's either going to be J.D. Vance. It's either going to be Marco Rubio. And it will either be Ron DeSantis. If that takes place and we have 8 more years of a MAGA-esque type of presidency, the lines of power in the whole world are going to get redrawn. All of those people, unless they have some type of epiphany, will no longer be our allies, and I have no problem with it because we do not
problem with that whatsoever.
None whatsoever. We
no
do not
problem.
share the same values. Sorry. And the Democrats embrace those values. Sorry.
That's right.
I do not embrace those values. I reject them. And so does the majority of America.
That's right. Listen, you ask your average blue collar Democrat, working class Democrat.
Oh, they're not
globalists. They're not for this. And that's why, again, going back to the original conversation about the elections, that's why they want to rig elections, because those pesky blue collar Democrats sometimes jump ship and they go vote for the other guy. They don't buy into the Democrat Party. They don't have anything in common with them when it comes to many of these issues, all the things that they embrace. But why is it that we have to keep repeating ourselves when people say, well, it looks like Europe's really trying to commit suicide? It's not suicide. Suicide is an act when you kill yourself. Europe is being deliberately murdered by
What Joe is basically saying is they're deliberately doing this to their own people, and that is a reality. To Joe's point, there are Democrats in America, i.e. the Teamsters. The Teamsters spoke at the Republican convention. That never happens. Know why? Because the values of the quote-unquote Democratic Party, which is not the Democratic Party of our grandparents, does not embrace the working man. This is reality, people. This is not the Democratic Party of our parents. It's reality. And people who are objective, who are not politically ideological, know this. They know this. Why do you have allegiance to any party? I have no allegiance to any party. I have allegiance to the truth because no party fully embraces my Catholic faith. So I have to choose. And there is no choice because I am pro-human. I am not
terrorists. The West is collapsing right before our eyes. All the conspiracy theories have not merely been confirmed, they have far surpassed every previous version imaginable. The West has revealed itself as a demonic system of civilization, at the very center of which stands satanic, cannibalistic sects that devour children, traffic women, orchestrate provocations around the world, manipulate financial markets and political processes, and perform black masses. In other words, only a tiny handful of Western politicians remain untouched by the Epstein network. So what are ordinary people in the West supposed to do now? Previously, if they didn't like the Democrats, they'd vote for the Republicans. If the Republicans disappointed them, they'd switch to the Democrats. But now, who are they even supposed to vote for? And what are we to do now when humanity has adopted so many Western practices in education, when we've come to believe in their culture, when we remake their films, when we still rely on their financial instruments? The situation for the world, for history, for humanity itself is truly extraordinary. We are essentially living in a global state of emergency, an Ernstfall. No one any longer has guaranteed sovereignty. Law, rights, agreements, everything has been voided. And with elites tied to Epstein's island, that should come as no surprise. For them, there are no red lines at all. You see, this pedophilic satanic elite can simply decide that Putin is evil, or that the Iranians are evil, or that Xi Jinping is evil, and then launch a nuclear war that destroys humanity. By the way, Epstein himself funded the construction of bunkers for that very elite. If tensions continue...
Joe, are you with me?
I am.
Okay, did you catch that?
I did.
So, what is he saying? What are your thoughts on that? Because that's the thing, is that every single thing that comes up, I don't care what the issue is, okay? You're going to go along with it. You're going to listen. Like we've been saying all the time. Putin, you want me to say that Putin's my enemy? What did Putin do to me? Let me ask you that. When Nikki Haley and the Republican, so-called conservative Republicans like Lindsey Graham get up there, they say, well, it's about freedom. Is it really about freedom, or is it about power? Is it about the American empire that you seem to want to preserve? You seem to want to keep it going when it's obviously at an end. E. Michael Jones is making that point a million times. I'm not listening to you. And guess what, Joe? That's why they're so upset. Because let me tell you something, not only in America, but around the world, if elections were truly on the up and up, these people, their power would be drained significantly and very, very quickly. What do you think?
First of all, for those who don't know who that is, that's Alexander Dugin. He is an intellectual from the Soviet Union. And what he's saying is absolutely correct. The West is decadent and the West is dying. We are not having children. Our culture is being drained from us. Globalism in open borders have stolen our livelihoods. Europe is dead. Germany, France, Spain, UK, Ireland, dead. And that is and Canada, for that matter. That is exactly what Mark Carney is all about. And that is exactly what he is putting in place. And he's doing an effective job. This is what the Democrats want to bring to America. What is it that we have in common anymore? What does it mean to be American? They are trying to replace Western civilization with secular humanism, and that is what Dugin is talking about. It is decadent. Look at the whole Epstein situation. There was a time when elites in America were idolized. They were idolized. Our elites are disgusting creatures. In plain English, they're disgusting. The Epstein situation is utterly and absolutely repulsive, and no one has gone to jail. Have you noticed that? I have.
Yeah, I noticed.
It is, and here's another thing. This has been going on for years. Obama had that list. Biden had that list, and now Trump has that list. Why isn't anyone in jail? Because they fund our system. These are the people that pull the levers of power of everything, and they're disgusting creatures. All of them.
Now, I ask you a question. You think John Wayne would have been on Epstein's island? Okay. You think some of the classic actors and celebrities from the past? I think of John Wayne because he's so iconic. In other words,
Joe? I'm sure he'll be back in a sec. We're having some system issues. Ultimately, like I said, the West has to find itself again. And if you ask me, Trump, with all his warts, with all his shortcomings, is trying to bring nationalism back to America, is trying to bring Christianity back to America. These two words, nationalism and Christianity, are not bad words. Sorry, America was founded upon Christianity. Sorry, that's our culture, and I'm not going to apologize for it, and nor should anybody else, and nor should we allow people to take it. By the way, when our country was founded upon Christianity and lived under a Christian edict, it thrived. It thrived. It had a thriving middle class. I'm not talking about a theocracy. I'm talking about a people where both Republicans and Democrats profess the belief in God, which holds people accountable, which sets up a moral foundation, which holds people to a standard. We have none of it. And that has to return. Yet people do not want it to return. And that's what the fight is all about. Religion is downstream from culture, just as politics is downstream from culture. Under it all is the fight to believe in God or have no God. Because what we're seeing from the new left is a godless state. And that is exactly what they're basically spewing to people through the media, who is also godless. Utterly and absolutely godless. And what has it gotten us? Look at our big cities. They're a wreck. You want to raise a family in one of these cities? This is the country that you want. For who? It's for the elites. The elites are fine. Where's the middle class in Minnesota? Where's the middle class in Staten Island? Where are any middle class in suburbs of Los Angeles? Gone. This is what you want, yet somehow it doesn't click in people's heads. People who are, quote unquote, struggling, who can't pay their bills, are still voting for these people who don't represent your interests.
Right. I mean, that, and really that's what it comes down to. But remember, Joe, they do represent their interests on one level. They promised them what we said on this, what we call it the show, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll culture. Aldous Huxley would have said, it's the soma. It's what you drink. That's what's given to you, so that you don't think about how you're controlled, how you're manipulated, because that's all they're going to give you is the ability to allow to have all the sex you want, get drunk, do all the drugs you want, marry who you want, kill your kids in the womb. And people go, oh, that's in my interest. Okay, you think that's in your interest. And in the meantime, you're being manipulated. And I'll tell anybody the same thing. When the time comes that you need to go under that regime, when they say it's time for you to go, guess what happens? You're going to go, because these people are ruthless. They're of the devil. There's no question about it. But here's the thing: is you talk about all of this decline. Let's just call it, to use a common popular phrase, the decline of Western civilization. This is what you get.
And to all of you, and Congressman, I'll start with you, would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is a...
Today, Junior?
This is, of course, a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
That was one. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the kid who gets called on in class and just try to come up with something off the top of their head to tell the teacher, but they can't string a couple of words together. That was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen from an American, so-called American politician, Joe, in my life. In my life. I have never seen anything as embarrassing as that, as adolescent as her answer. You know why? Because she's basically in her mind, her intellect, she is an adolescent. That's all she is. And it goes to what I said earlier. Unless she has a script, she's no good. And I can't even watch that again, no matter how funny it is. I can't watch that again. That's because it's just, I almost feel bad for her. I don't, but I almost do.
I feel bad for us because people will vote for her for president. Many people will vote for her for president. And there's still talk that her and Kamala Harris are going to run, which is insane.
Right.
Both of which have no business being the president. Say all you want about Donald Trump. I get it. He's not perfect. Sorry. It's not even a comparison. That woman has no business representing anyone.
Right.
Anyone. And this is the folly that has been created in America. Our country is a Saturday Night Live skit. It's utterly ridiculous. There's a saying, the people get the politicians they deserve and they get them good and hard. Well, that is exactly what we're getting. Our culture is robbed of us and has been robbed of us, and that's what you get. That is what you get. It's utterly and absolutely unbelievable, but it is believable.
Look,
and
can I throw
that
something
is
out
real
there?
time. That just took place. Do you imagine serious people? Let's be like step away from this for a second. President Xi of China, Putin, you don't have to like them. They're serious men. Serious men. And they listen to that. They must literally just laugh. I would.
Right.
We had to go through Biden. Biden walking into the forest in Brazil. That was absurd. Kamala Harris talking about Venn diagrams, rambling about God knows what. No one knew what. And then you have this. That is the Democratic Party. That is the new left. It's all ideology. It's all crap. It's nothing more than crap. And the media is manipulating the masses to vote for that. And Joe Pasillo, millions of people will vote for her. Millions.
Well, in one thing that I will say in fairness is that she got elected in her district because people, can you hear me, Joe?
Yes.
She got elected in her district because they say, oh, she won 80% of the vote. Right. And I've said this before. She won 80% of the 10% of the people that showed up to vote in her district. She didn't win 80% of the voters in her district because, quite frankly, in that district, a lot of people did not go out to vote. Shame on them. All right. Shame on them, too, for when they elected Crowley, who was no bargain either. OK, but Crowley was at least somebody who wouldn't have done that. Okay, he wouldn't have come up with that word salad if it was the congressman from that district in Queens. But here's the thing: we have this not because I think there's a lot of decadence in, let's just call it the West, obviously in America, but because elections are rigged, I don't believe it's as decadent as it's being made out to be. And I'll give you an example of that. Hollywood doesn't reflect what's going on in our politics. If everybody thought like Hollywood is sinking fast, okay, because they put out crap that the American people don't want to see. So then you're going to tell me with Hollywood sinking like a rock, before Scott Jennings, CNN was sinking like a rock, before Joe Scarborough decided he would have an epiphany and not sound like such a radical leftist, MSNBC was going down like a rock, okay? They're going down like a rock, but then like the elections are even close. It shows you that there might be something going on in the elections that we're not seeing, which, again, I will say a million times over, our elections are rigged. That's why there not only needs to be the SAVE Act, there needs Donald Trump needs to hire or employ 10,000 agents, new agents, temporary workers at the Department of Justice that you pay them well for about the couple of weeks they're going to work. They get deployed to every single counting room and place that you vote in the United States with federal oversight is how you enforce the SAVE Act. Federal oversight. That includes for elections of mayors and local councilmen. You walk in to vote, we don't care what you're voting in, you're going to show an ID, and there needs to be federal oversight of all elections. And AOC not get elected. Now, maybe in her district she'd get elected, but she would be a nobody in the United States House of Representatives. Because even though Republicans are so flawed, so frustrating, where you want to punch John Thune right in his face, okay? And say, what are you thinking about, John? What do you have to think about here, John? We want voter ID. 80% of the American people want voter ID, okay? You want to put, but at least Republicans are at least stomachable, if that's a word. You could stomach them. How the hell do you stomach these people, Joe? I don't get it.
Here's the problem. It's multi-layered. One, our education system is grooming people to come out of college to think like secular humanists. And they believe and they accept the nonsense that comes from the new left. That's one. Two, the press only tells people what the corporate media and the corporate sponsors want them to hear. That includes Fox News. Our people are they're not informed. They're not educated properly in our public schools, and our elite institutions teach utter and absolute nonsense to our people, and they come out like Mandani, like Obama. These are elite men coming out of elite institutions, and that's what they espouse. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in the middle class. They want your vote. They'll lie to you to your face to get it, but their ideology is anti-middle class, and it's proven. Case in point, I can go through country after country in Europe, country in Canada, and all the liberal states in America.
Let's go to Canada. Let's go to Canada. And you could, go ahead.
Okay, go.
Let's go.
And lastly, our country no longer believes in God. Our belief system is religion in America is a mile wide and an inch deep.
Remember,
you're not going to tell me that
ultimately...
you believe in God when you kill children a second before they're born, when you basically mutilate children who are under 18, saying that they could change their gender. And we're going to talk about that too. You're not going to tell me you believe in God when you believe in same-sex marriage. Sorry. That is not a godly belief, and America as a whole embraces all of it. And that is why they believe in AOC. And that is why they voted for Mandani. And that is why they voted for Kamala Harris. And that is why they voted for Joe Biden. Because we've lost our soul.
Right. No, I agree. Let's go to Canada.
I think what they did to Pierre Poilievre was bad. If you think what they did to Preston Manning and Stockwell Day was bad, all those guys wanted to do is be a part of the system. But imagine if Albertans say, we're done being part of the system, we want to leave, we're taking our 170 billion barrels of oil with us, and we may be the first domino to go. I think we're talking deep state involvement. We all worried about the assassination of Donald Trump, and it came within an inch of it. When you're talking about 170 billion barrels of oil, when you're talking about changing entire country boundaries, there will be nothing that isn't thrown at this. I just fear the greatest battle, the greatest hatchet job, the greatest assassination, the greatest fear campaign ever seen in Canada. I'm not focused on that. I'm not riveted by that. I just have a terrible premonition that if Albertans dare to take their destiny in their own hands, the same way Quebec has now done twice, that those Albertans will be ground into powder. What do you think?
I agree entirely. I was speaking with a litigator, another lawyer yesterday, who's never been involved in fights like this. And as you know, Ezra, I've been on the front line of some very difficult situations, both in Alberta, where I fought the Stelmach government and brought them down, the old PCs, under property rights issues, and then being on the front lines in Ottawa during COVID mandates and Freedom Convoy. So I know I've got the bruises and the scars from those fights, and I know what they take. And what I cautioned this other lawyer about is I said, right now it's being like in a lawsuit where on the other side, it's a self-represented party and we're just mopping the floor, right? As experienced litigators, I said, there's wolf packs and dream teams about to show up on the other side. The Laurentian elite are not going to let this cash cow go. Yeah. They're not going to want us to get out of this relationship where they can milk us and they can have all these huge amounts of money go to them and us be their play toy for their extremist policy implementations. So yeah, we're going to have a fight on our hands. There's going to be dirty tricks played. There's going to be attempts to, they're probably going to put so much pressure on me that I may lose some clients. I'm prepared to do that. If it gets too hot for my clients, I'll certainly understand if they want to get a different lawyer on their litigation files. But not only what you just point out. So we're going to have all of the media, but for a few like yourself, are paid for by the federal liberals. Right. That's just a fact.
Really, like when you think of 2016 here with the election of Donald Trump, which was a rebellion of some kind, rebelling against the elites, ostensibly the deep state and all the things that Trump ran on, right? When you think about what they did during Brexit, okay, and how the will of the people was thwarted. There's no other way you could describe that. If a liberal looked at me and says, well, there is no, the people of England said, we don't want to be a part of the EU. And the EU said, we don't want you to do it. And they've been thwarting it ever since. When you look at, he mentioned the Freedom Convoy. Okay. When you look at the Yellow Jackets in France, all right, if Alberta, and this is what you always say, money moves the dial. Am I right, Joe Resinello?
Absolutely.
So if money moves the dial, did you hear the number he said? He didn't say $170 billion worth of oil. He said 170 billion barrels of oil. You know how much money that is? You think all those other, let's say, quasi-protests or uprisings against the elites caused a ripple compared to what that would cause if Albertans turned around and said, either we want complete independence or we want to be part of the United States of America? What are your thoughts?
They will never let them leave that country.
They'll kill them all.
Wait,
let me cut you off for 1 second, Joe. I'm glad you said that. I'm sorry to cut you off. I haven't done that in a long time, but I'm sorry to cut you off. I honestly believe they'll commit a genocide in Alberta because of the amount of money we're talking about and how significant a move it would be. I think they're going to go in there and they're going to kill people. That's what I think Ottawa will do. They will send in whatever army Canada has, and they will start shooting people in order to suppress them. I'm going to throw it back to you.
They will never. And I think that conversation, we started it last week. And when I saw this particular clip, I wanted to expand the conversation. I think that guy is spot on. Ezra is spot on. There is no way they're allowing Alberta to get out of Canada, whether it's independence or whether it's with the United States. Most probably they're looking to be independent, and they will never permit it because too much money is at stake. They will stop at nothing to stop that movement. Right now, it's a conversation. It really isn't quote unquote, moving in a serious manner where it's going to happen, say, in a year. It's starting to build. Let me phrase it that way. I shouldn't say it's not serious. It is very serious, but it's at the beginning stages. If it ever got serious where 66%, 2/3 of the population were for independence, where all the politicians were on board, you would see them stomped out like a bug. There is no question about it. And the only way that it would work is if the United States got on their side. There is no way that they would be able to break free from Canada on their own. There is no way it would be permitted.
Right.
Get that through your head that is not how the deep state works. Power is never given, it's taken. And you would have to take power from Ottawa, and they would never allow it.
If I was the president of the United States, I would turn around and tell the Albertans, knock yourself out. They try to do anything to you, we're your friend. You want to become the 51st state of the United States? Okay, and we'll go and you have the oil, and you're going to add much to our country, and we're going to add a lot to you as a new state. Guess what? Tell guys like Carney and the oligarchs, you don't want to know something? Go ahead. We are, this is what I don't get. We are still the United States of America. And to me, that's not empire building. That's not going overseas and trying to overturn a dictator in Chile, or when they killed Ngo Dinh Diem in Vietnam, and when they ousted when the CIA was creating havoc for 50, 60, 70 years. That's not the case here. That's our neighbor. They border us. And a naturally, what would look to me like a natural 51st state, when you look at Alberta, is saying they want to be part of us. And if those people are going to be attacked, yes, with military force by Ottawa, okay, we're going to tell Ottawa they want to be part of us. We're going to consider them. We're going to deem them part of the United States of America. Ergo, if you attack that state, then we're going to come into their defense. And what is the Canadian? No offense to anybody in Canada. What is the Canadian military going to do to us? What are they going to do to us? See, sometimes you have to say to them, they believe that might makes right. Okay, in this case, if the United States came to the back of Albertans and said, you could be part of the United States, we'll take your back. You could get away from Ottawa, all right, and you don't have to put up with that anymore. Well, if might makes right, guess what? We got the guns. We got the guns, and you don't, Mr. Carney. All right. So, and Joe, by the way, 30% is a lot. 30% is a lot. You agree with me on that?
It is, but I still think it has to get a lot more momentum. You have to also start seeing people with money behind it. That's when you start to worry if you're Ottawa. Right now, again, it's a grassroots movement. I think it's something to look at. I'm keeping my eye on it. I'm sure many people in the chat are as well. But ultimately, I absolutely do not believe that Ottawa is just going to give it away. I think they'd fight like hell, and I think they'd fight dirty. We've already seen what they did to the truckers. They basically froze their bank accounts. Why can't they do that to the Ottawa separatists? Freeze your bank accounts. Treat you as if you were traitors. We've already heard voices from Canada saying that they are just that. They're traitors. Don't think that the power brokers will not move forward on that. Don't think that they won't look to punish people who are outspoken in Ottawa. They could do many things. They have the levels of power right now, and they will do that. They will do that. They're not just going to give Ottawa. So what? You voted. We saw that in with Brexit. They voted too. It never really happened. Voting, and then they let in a gazillion migrants to basically negate the vote. They'll do everything they possibly can and more, including punish people for speaking the truth, including calling you basically a traitor and acting on it. They absolutely will do that. You should expect it. Freedom isn't free. Keep that in mind. Freedom is fought for, and it's fought for every single day. And if you don't watch it and cherish it, it gets taken from you. And that's exactly what happened in Canada. Your freedom has been taken from you. And frankly, America, in many segments of America, our freedom has been taken too. Look at some of the states. The taxation is over the top. Giving money to the state left and right for fraud is not freedom. Are we free? Really? I get to pay for friggin' nonsense and fraud and money that's getting moved around to nothing more than nonsense, to corruption. I'm free? Really? I'm free? And look at what's going on in Canada. How much of your money is getting taken from your paycheck? You're free? You're going to call yourself free? That's an illusion. It's an absolute and utter illusion.
It really is. Well, let's pivot. Let's pivot. And I'm praying for. I honestly want to see I want to see a major boundary shakeup in North America. And what I mean by that is, I've said this before. I don't care if it's part of Alberta or let's say Western Canada going up to Alaska. Cut the country, cut America in half. We'll take the West. We'll take Alberta. We'll take the $8.5–9 trillion worth of oil that we could get. But I want to see some sort of a shakeup. What form that takes, I don't know, but it would be really nice if the Albertans seceded, because then you'll really see the oligarchs squirm and you'll see them for what they are. Not that you didn't see that during the trucker convoy, but you'll see it even more so.
Okay, so if you know anything about Donald Trump, you know that he built his 2 presidential victories on winning voters without a college degree, while Donald Trump's base with non-college voters is absolutely collapsing. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just take a look? Voters without a college degree on Donald Trump. Look at this. Back in 2024, he won those voters over Kamala Harris by 14 points. You come over to this side of the screen. What's his net approval rating with him? He is underwater by 9 points. That's a 23-point switcheroo with his base of non-college voters. He is absolutely collapsing with the group of voters that helped put him into the White House, Kate.
Okay, so how are these non-college voters feeling about 2026?
Okay, so you see this drop of 23 points, right? From plus 14 Trump to now he's underwater by 9 points. How is that impacting their views on how they're going to vote for Congress? Well, you see a similar story going on here, right? Take a look. In the 2024 election, Republicans won those voters, those non-college voters, by 13 points. Now they're just ahead by just 1, 2, 3, 4 points. When you can count it on one hand, you know that you're in trouble if you're Donald John Trump and the Republican Party, in this case, the Republican Party, when it comes to the voters in Congress. And of course, a 4-point lead among non-college voters is not anywhere close to being good enough because Democrats are dominating among voters with a college degree, up by 20 points. At this point, the Democratic base with college voters is rising, and the Republican base with non-college voters is collapsing.
One of the big promises, circling back to the economy, one of the big promises from President Trump was bringing back manufacturing jobs. And that speaks to somewhat of this split that you're kind of highlighting here. What are the hard numbers on this?
Yeah, okay. One of the reasons why Donald Trump has been able to bring non-college voters into the Republican ranks is because he said, hey, I'm going to bring back those jobs, those manufacturing jobs that were lost to free trade, right? Bring in those tariffs, restrict those jobs from moving overseas. But there's just a bit of a problem going on here. How about those manufacturing jobs? In December of 2025, compared to the beginning of the Donald Trump presidency, the manufacturing jobs have gone adios amigos. See you later. They've been going away, down 63,000 versus January of 2025, with an even larger collapse since Liberation Day, right? So what we're dealing with is a Donald Trump message that is not actually meeting the reality, and that is why non-college voters have been going away from the President of the United States and away.
That guy's a little overly dramatic for me. I mean, in terms of the way he speaks and in his movements and everything else. And plus, that's CNN. So I'm not saying that the numbers aren't correct, okay? But they're going to interpret it in the way, well, they won't tell you all the factors that have led to and things the way Donald Trump has been thwarted in many ways. That's too long to go into when it comes to bringing those jobs back here. But nonetheless, his numbers are off. What are your thoughts on it, Joe?
That's a metric that matters. And ultimately, a lot of times people talk about the S&P, it's over 50,000. They talk about the stock market. The reality is half of America does not own a single share of stock. That does not basically mean a thing to 50% of America. They don't own a share of stock. And ultimately, has life improved? Two things Donald Trump won the nation on. He won the nation on the economy, which is the driving issue in every election. It cuts across political ideology. I can't pay my bills. I don't care what you believe in. I can't pay my bills. Second was migration. Those were the two issues that Donald Trump won the presidency on. And ultimately, has life improved for the lower middle class and the working poor? I would probably say it hasn't. That is why Mamdani won in New York, because people can't afford to live. The middle class is shrinking, and that's why those numbers are what they are. Charlie Kirk said this, that the Republicans, and we have said this as well, that the Chamber of Commerce Republican can't get it through his head that if they do not make some changes to how things work, they are going to get slaughtered because people can't afford to live. I'm talking about regular people. You look at diners, you look at fast food operations. No one goes out to eat anymore because they can't afford to. I'm talking about regular people going to not like fancy places. It's absurd how much things cost. And that is what those numbers reflect. And that is what the Chamber of Commerce Republican can't get through his head. And that is when they talk about the S&P, it doesn't mean a damn thing to half the country.
No, nor should it. I don't care. You tell me, there are so many different factors that go into, why we're having such a hard time economically. Like you said, it's only got to be greed. The only thing you could think of, it's greed on part of the Chamber of Commerce, conservatives. They don't, they treat the free market. They treat the free market like it's an idol. Ooh, you can't touch it. It's like God, right? In other words, don't disobey God. And that's legit. You shouldn't disobey God. Don't question God. But the markets are not divine. The markets are not God. They're not idols. They're what they are and what they become for the far right, Joe. Not the far right. The right, conservatives. They have become false idols. We bend our knee to them. Oh, don't. But the thing is, I was telling somebody the other day, they say, well, you can't mess with the free market. Okay, but maybe I would agree with you. But we don't live in a real free market. We live in a manipulated market. The labor market's manipulated. The financial markets are manipulated. The gold and silver markets are manipulated. It's not a free market. So don't tell me that I'm trying to mess with the free market. If the free market was functioning, dare I say, along moral lines, okay, dare I say that or use that word when it comes to economics, then maybe I would say, okay, don't mess with it. We have good boundaries around the market. Let market forces drive prices and costs and things like that. But at the end of the day, we don't have that. We don't have that. You want me to respect the free market? You don't respect the free market. You manipulate the whole friggin' thing, and then you tell us, you're conservative. We're not socialists or communists, so we can't really mess with the free market. Okay, well, let's get to the point where we have a free market, and then maybe I'll back off. But until then, either you listen to guys like Joe and others like, yes, dare I say, who are a bit more Catholic in the way we think our economy should run, or you're going to get a lot more Mamdanis and AOCs and idiots like that. And you want to know what? In fairness, Joe, Mamdani's not an idiot. He got elected in New York.
Oh, he's not an idiot. He's far from it.
He's not an idiot. AOC, I think, is a bit dim-witted. See, Joe, I'm getting better. I could have called her an idiot.
But ultimately, what people are missing, while their lives economically may not have improved, say, from last year to this year, and that's kind of where those numbers are being reflected, the new left will destroy you. The state is not your dad. That is like, and here's another thing. History has proven that. The state does not create jobs. The state is not your dad. It's not going to support you. And to think that socialism works shows to me that you're not a student of history, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. What works is a moral democracy. And what is a moral democracy? Where you have people that believe in something larger than themselves and they're guided by a North Star. That works. When you have a capitalist system where people have a morality that's underneath them, that works. Is it perfect? No. But the state, the godless state, always becomes a tyrant. History has proven that time and time and time again. And to think that this time this is not going to happen is frankly to be naive. And it just shows that so many people are so easily manipulated, and the politicians know that. The politicians know that, and so does the press. At least before, they weren't as bold to call communism or socialism what it was. Now they're just being bold and outright. You have a guy in New York who ran on a socialist platform and was elected.
Yeah.
That will not provide the solution, but people are looking for a solution and they're not getting it. And that has to change, Joe Pasillo, or we're in trouble.
Well, you know what? It's not absolute. Talking about not the young people Donald Trump out home. Oh.
Someone put this in the chat. Sin makes people stupid. Sadly, it does. Sin basically clouds the mind. That is a reality. That is a reality. And that's exactly what's going on. How many people are living in the state of grace in our country? How many people even go to church? How many people pray? That is the problem. How many people base their life upon some type of vice, whether it's usury, whether it's sex outside of marriage, whether it's cheating on their wife, whether it's the escape route of abortion because they're living promiscuous lives. And that's why they vote the way they vote. And that's why they can't connect the dots that, frankly, our system is stealing your livelihood away from you. And they still vote them against their own interests. And that's why. Because our society is unmoored. That's the underlying problem. It clearly is the underlying problem. It's the underlying problem why our families are falling apart. It's the underlying problem why our children are wounded. It's the underlying problem why suicide rates are high. It's the underlying problem why drug addiction is high. Because we are an unmoored society.
No, listen. At the end of the day, that's ultimately our problems. We're having some technical issues, Joe. So let's just call it a day for today. And we'll get to the Scott Jennings clip next week. I'll have that resolved so that we don't go through this again. So hopefully, and we want to thank you. We had a good crowd going. We had a lot of chatter in the comment box. So we want to, ask, we really appreciate that, and always with your support. So when things go wrong, we try to struggle through it. So we're going to call it a day for today. But thank you all again for joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe. Remember, wherever you're seeing these shows, our interviews from the Veritas Catholic Radio Network. And if you really like our content, help us out and like, subscribe, share,